Welcome to another episode of Living Well with Rent Well. I'm your co-host, TJ Hock. With us today is Clay Stapleford. How are you, Clay?
Doing great, man. Great to be here.
Excellent. Clay, I'm really pumped for this conversation. We are here to talk about Findigs and what you do to answer some of the new challenges in the leasing
Yeah.
space and tenant placement. I think this is such a big missing piece, particularly just in the last 3 or 4 years of tenant placement and verifying their income and what's in their bank account. And the list kind of goes on, and we'll dig into that. But before we do, I'd love if you could give us a little bit about yourself and who is Findigs and what does Findigs do, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah. Thank you, TJ. It's great to be here. Excited about your podcast. I think you're doing some great stuff, and honored to kind of represent Findigs as well. My name's Clay Stapleford. I'm down in Atlanta, Georgia. We're actually based in New York City, but I work remote and have been here for about 20 years by way of LA and DC prior to that, but grew up in North Carolina. But Atlanta's home and has been for a minute. Have been with Findigs from very early. I was number 4 in the company.
Wow.
Yeah, which is kind of a fun ride. At this point, we're like 55 and growing like wildfire. So that journey's been like quite the experience for so many reasons. But founded in late 2018, and the product was actually launched in early 2020, literally as COVID was hitting the shores, not knowing then how impactful COVID would be on just the rental experience and the value and the importance of the leasing process and vetting tenants. But as COVID kind of made things worse, we were that first to market that had some truly innovative answers, tech-enabled answers in how we can shift the leasing experience from an experience that's been traditionally wholly based on self-reported information and documentation that requires a manual review. That worked 20 years ago, but now that just simply doesn't cut the mustard, especially when there's so much on the line. And if you think about today's paradigm, it's never been more important to get the right renters in your homes. And that's because it's so hard to get the bad actors out. Right. At the same time, it's never been easier for an individual to commit some level of fraud in the application process. So there's not to mention the incentive to do so, because more and more folks are struggling to make ends meet or losing their jobs because of the economy. So you have this perfect storm where that piece of the vetting a new tenant that's going to be there and be loyal to pay the rent and to have that great experience on both sides, that becomes that really crucial point now. And that's why Findigs exists, honestly.
Yeah.
It's to
and I think, to your point, coming out of or going through and coming out of COVID, it's so important to be looking at not just pay stub, but what is in the bank account, and as a property management company, I'm excited to have the partnership with you because, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients and protecting their assets and their financials. And one of our shticks is that we help them build wealth through real estate. And that's through sound property management. And so we have personally experienced tenants who have fabricated their pay stubs or give us a friend or family member who's the landlord of the property.
Right.
And, or maybe they gave us faulty bank statements, right? We've seen bank statements that were thrown into photos and tweaked. So what I really like about your system, and what I believe now makes us a unique property management company in, I'll just say, the Pennsylvania market, or particularly Southeast Pennsylvania, is that we now have the ability to use your systems, which integrates AI technology. So I'd love if you could share a little bit more with our listeners, like kind of the high level bullet point, specifically what does Findigs do to protect the landlord, like using the AI technology to scan the pay stubs and see if they're legit,
Right.
like
Right.
because there's so many service based, um, kind of like, I don't even know the word to use, but if I'm an Uber driver or a Grubhub driver, or these individual type services, you link with their accounts, I believe, right? And then this way you
Yeah.
have actual visibility into what their income is.
And
Uh,
their ability to pay the rent, right?
and
That's what you want to know.
yep.
It's because the essential question is the person applying to the property the person they say they are, right? The identity fraud is just rampant and growing. But then it's, do they actually have the money to pay the rent? Um, to so that that decision can be based on real verified information, and you can feel more secure about that, especially to your owners, right? Because you have someone you're answering to as well, and that's valuable property. So essentially, Findigs is a digital underwriting platform that verifies every applicant's identity and income in minutes, no matter how they make money. That's essentially what we do. So because if you think about the traditional way, and even the ways it's been still doing now, it's again, um, someone applies, they're self-reporting their information about who they are, where they work, how much they make, and then they're supplying paper documents to verify that. And you're having to make phone calls and look at documents, and then you'll pull a credit report and see how that matches up, and then hopefully you get it all right and you make a great decision. So now we're in this state where uh, that process doesn't work any longer because there are just too many ways folks can fake information in the application process. So Findigs mitigates the risk there a lot of different ways. So the big key for us though is programmatically verifying income in minutes. When someone applies through Findigs, a key value proposition for both sides is an easy to fill out mobile optimized rental application. So literally I can complete my application during a walkthrough if I like. And why that's so helpful is I don't have to go download pay stubs. I don't have to go home and look through a file to find a bank statement that you would require. I can literally just link my payroll provider or link my bank account through secure encrypted pathways so that I can instantly demonstrate to you the income, whether through my payroll provider or through my bank account. And in those circumstances, that's the most preferred happy path, because as an applicant, I can give you my sensitive PII, right? Sensitive information about myself in a secure pathway instantaneously, so that on the back end, you're going to have those, verified results. So you can actually make that decision fast for me. So maybe I'm not having to apply to 15 different properties with different property managers, because I know I'm going to get this decision faster rather than waiting what has traditionally been a 3 to 7 day kind of waiting period for someone to vet me manually. So the whole goal and the mission of Findigs is to make that process uncatchably fast, if you will, so that you can make those decisions in minutes and have real information to go on, rather than spending so much time playing detective trying to figure out if things are real. So how that happens, most folks, like I said, link a bank or a payroll. I think we're industry leading in that. We were the first to market to bring a bank link to specifically verify applicants' income, and we've added the payroll provider link as well. So those two things most applicants are doing across the board, across the U.S. on our platform.
Which is
What
amazing,
we
right? Like the idea of a much quicker application
Yeah.
process. And even, if I were looking for a property, the fact that I can just from my app, from my phone, which we looked up, 85% of our applicants do it from their phone. Well, now
Right.
you can just sync to your payroll, sync to your bank, sync to you don't need to go find it, download it, upload it, save it, scan it, whatever you do. The fact that you can do it right then and there is great.
100%. I mean, that is honestly too where any potential tenant and future loyal customer, that's their first real experience beyond your website into how they're going to expect that relationship to go. So giving them that initial breeze, if you will, in terms of that. No one likes to fill out applications, but if you can make it easy, make it simple, make it transparent for me, secure for me, then all of a sudden I'm feeling way better about what I would expect from said future property manager for me as an applicant. And that goes a long way. When someone applies through us, not only do they have the best experience in class, 75% NPS score from applicants applying, that is crazy compared to what the national average is, which is I think about 25% in terms of the NPS score for a traditional application. So it starts there. 2FA protected, which is the first line of defense for any fraud prevention. And then in that rental application experience, from my phone, I'm going to upload the front and back of my ID, and I take a 3D selfie. It takes 10 seconds. I'm going to link my bank or my payroll to securely verify my income in seconds. I can complete my application in minutes rather than hours trying to comb through and frustrated about when I'm going to be done. It's built and designed to facilitate those conversions faster. So minutes after someone submits, you have one place to look for all of these relevant details about the due diligence you would want to know in an underwriting decision for that said property, right? Straight away, is that applicant the person they say they are through ID check with facial match technology. You're going to know their income via a bank link, a payroll link, or now with our proprietary document analysis engine, which is going to review every pay stub and bank statement uploaded. When folks choose that option to verify their income, we have an AI ML engine that actually is built to give you instantaneous insights into whether or not there are any potential indicators of fraud on that document. Oh. So that's brand new. It's been in dev for over a year, honestly, and in beta with a few enterprise clients for, I don't know how many months now, but it's been trained at this point on hundreds of thousands of documents. And it's got the ability to give you instant insights. So in all of this regression testing that we've done, it always spotted any potential fraud on a document that a human caught. And it additionally caught 20% of fraud on documents that made it through. So if you think about that, I think right now that engine is actually hitting about 12% and flagging about 12% of documents being uploaded. Really? Which is a crazy number, right? So if you think about it, additionally, Forrester Research came out with a statistic last year that 13.5% of applications out there are fraudulent in some manner, and roughly 40% of evictions are tied to those fraudulent applications. Really? So that's a crazy, scary stat. And if our engine is catching 12% and flagging 12% of documents being funneled through our process right now, that's equivalent with what Forrester Research is telling us. So if you're a PM doing that manual review and not catching a certain percentage of documents, that should scare you, honestly, because if you look at paystub.com and how many online template generators there are out there or photo editors are out there, it's kind of scary. So this engine is built to give you that edge, to stay ahead of that game. So ID with facial match, income verification. We're collecting and automating the collection of rental history. So we're programmatically reaching out to former landlords, property managers, to help take some of the guesswork and busy work out of that piece, which is typically one of the biggest, time consumers in the discovery process. And all of that is augmented by TransUnion with their resident screener enterprise grade level of reports and their recommendation engine. So all of these elements are designed so that as soon as someone submits an application, you know, are they who they say they are? You know, if they have the income to pay the rent for that property. You know, if they meet your background check criteria. And so, unless they're on the fringe, maybe you're not having to do a rental history check, and you can make that decision right then. That's what it's designed to do. So that, and we do that in a one ecosystem, so that you're not having to piecemeal all these things together. And then we play nice with your property management software, right? And that's the trick. It's to get all of that information into however and through whatever technology you're managing that tenancy. We're going to funnel all that information in for you, so there's no new manual work, and there's no disruption to workflows.
Oh,
So that's
and then
so
you
it's a
even,
fun.
yeah, well, and then you even have a whole nother segment where if somebody's self-employed, right,
Yeah,
basically that it'll take them down a different path, a different workflow. Um,
that's correct.
I just think this is remarkable because speaking of the property manager side, there is a lot of manual work, and to be able to use some of these AI engines and 3D technology and syncing to a bank account or pay
Right.
stub, just it takes away any of the guesswork. Like, gee, I wonder if this person really is telling the truth. They sounded honest on the phone, you know.
Right. And
It
you just said it though, because people have different sources of income and they're in different circumstances. And so, and the populace is pretty dynamic. And how Findigs rental application is designed, well, it's designed to be super customizable, one, so that if you have certain things that you need to add or include based on your market, based on kind of the laws that might be in place, we make sure it's easy to customize that, so you're capturing the details that are relevant to you. Additionally, though, you hit on a note, right? The self-employed, or maybe I need a guarantor, or maybe I um, am a gig worker. What we've also done is really solve a pain point in terms of incomplete applications. It's receiving an application and, gosh, so and so didn't include enough pay stubs. I've got to spend all of this time going after this person to give me those documents, and that's an abrasive experience, and no one would want. With a Findigs application, you have the ability to customize the exact document requirements based on income type. So if you're requiring 3 months of bank statements here, three pay stubs here, or a tax document here, or maybe it's a Section 8 voucher here, you can put those guardrails up and customize that, so that when I am going through the application and I'm following my path, which is dynamic, meaning every question I'm asked is based on my previous answer, so that I'm not asked a bunch of non-relevant questions getting frustrated, so that I choose to upload said document. I know exactly what you're requiring, and I have to include that before I can submit and pay, and before you're ever reviewing it. So it facilitates, easy for me to know what you demand, and then on the back end, you're getting a completed application with all the details the first time around. So a huge just help in efficiency.
it's a beautiful thing, and the
Yeah,
fact that you integrate with these other soft management
right.
soft, it's a no brainer. There really isn't any extra lift, which is wonderful.
Yeah, as soon as the decision is made, all of the information gets funneled into your property management software. So you're executing the lease and managing the tenancy from there with all of the details that we've collected in the application process.
Clay, anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, yes. I'm glad you asked, because I forgot to mention this key crucial point. But one big thing that we're just now releasing is our native pet verification tool. So
Okay.
this will verify any ESA, service animals, and also restricted breeds, do all of that investigative work on your behalf. And why that's key, again, it's the idea of a one-stop shop ecosystem where an applicant can do everything they need to do, and the PM has everything in one place. So with the native pet verification, that will be intrinsic in the and native in the application flow for an applicant, so they're not having to go to an outside source and do a whole nother platform. And then for the property manager, all those key results will land in the native Findigs UI for the property manager. Just keeping that and simplifying that, again, to reduce the number of folks that you would have to, or process that you would have to go through for any one applicant at a time. So we're super thrilled about that, and more details on that to come.
Excellent. Well, Clay, I really appreciate your time with us today. I always like to wrap up the conversations when I remember to ask the questions, which is one of them is, do you have any recent books that you've read or are reading that is making an impact on your life?
Gosh, that's a great question. Yeah. So Ryan Holiday, a lot of people know him. Obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy. But recently, Stillness is the Key. Really, really good book. It really hits, kind of resonates with me. Synthesizes basically Eastern and Western philosophy and how to maintain focus, especially in kind of this turbulent and contentious modern life, right? So it's finding ways to, and practical ways that you can actually facilitate kind of presentness, mindfulness in your daily life. That actually has been a super good read for me the past year and a half.
I'll have to check that out. I like that
Yeah,
quote. The obstacle is the way, and ego
yeah.
is the way. Huh.
So yeah, he's got a lot of great stuff, by the way. So you could probably start in a lot of different ones.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
And what are you doing currently to develop your skills, keep them growing? Anything in particular?
that's a really good question. I think this is one of those things. I love to put myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable. I love to get on the edge, if you will, so that I'm always having to grow. I could stay in my comfort zone and live there, or I could constantly be putting myself in positions where I can be surprised or I have to step up to the plate. This is an example of that. Um, specifically Findigs, I would say my experience with the company too, especially being very early to now, 3 years in, number 4 to now 55 plus and growing like wildfire. There's been a lot of step ups that have been required to keep pace with that level of growth, especially when you're bringing in so many amazing people that you respect and they're like eminently smarter than you are. So it's like I love to keep myself on the edge, and whether that's putting myself out there at conferences to speak on stage and on panels or podcasts like this, these things require me to stay active and engaged in moving forward and growing.
Yeah. There's a visualization. You've probably seen it where it's the circle and there's a dot outside of the circle. The
Yeah,
circle is the comfort zone and growth is just outside.
just outside. 100%.
And the last one would be, if you were to go back to give yourself advice earlier in your career, let's call it 22 years old, what advice would you give yourself that you know to be true today?
Trust yourself. I especially, gosh, now too, the most challenging times in my life were always the times when I didn't trust my instincts. I didn't trust my heart. So I think know your heart and then trust your heart would
Yeah.
be so key. And having that kind of having the experience to kind of own that now, I would love my 22-year-old self to have that same ownership.
We could do a whole episode on that and how your mind tries to control your emotion, and
Yeah,
I think in its simplest form is just, I love that. Trust yourself, trust your heart, listen to your heart.
yeah,
Well,
totally.
Clay, really appreciate you being on today. If somebody wants to learn more about Findigs or reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so glad you asked. You can look us up online, findigs.com, Findigs.com. And you can also reach out to me, clay@findigs.com. But would love to hear from you. And I really appreciate the time and coming on with you. I think this podcast is pretty cool, just based on kind of everything I've seen you do so far. So it's an honor to be here.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for being our guest. We'll talk
Yeah,
soon.
thank you.
Thank you for listening to Living Well with Rentwell. We hope you loved that episode.
Please be sure to head over to our website at rentwell.com/vision. We're giving away our free program called Vision Through Purposeful Action. If you're a busy person, if you struggle with finding the time and priorities, or if you're experiencing procrastination and overwhelm, this free course will help you with that.
We wish you a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in, and check in later.